you guys obviously are in a slightly smaller sense as a biotech company looking after these things as yourself. Can you talk a little bit about the difficulties being in that space and the sort of challenges that you face?
Yeah. So, the system's really changed in the last, I would say, decade or so. It used to be that big pharma would pick technologies out of universities and develop them in-house with these massive research groups. But as we've seen, companies get larger and larger, they're at the end of the day, how they're evaluated becomes different. I mean, you've got these very huge public companies with shareholders and huge boards and things like that. And I think what you can see from that is, even though their capacity is huge and what they're able to accomplish is amazing, they've become a little bit more risk averse. And so what has happened now is that instead of this big pharma university system where there's this direct linear translation from one to the other, you've started to see technology from universities spinning out into companies who are able to directly develop technology in that commercial gap in order to facilitate large pharma to see less risk in taking that product so that they can do what they do best, which is the manufacturing, distribution, marketing, direct patient hospital interactions, dealing with insurance companies. What they've become less good at as a result of these big, massive infrastructures is they're not as good with the high risk type of studies that like we're doing right now. For example, if just as a general example, without trying to single anybody out, if you were to go to somebody whose mom had really advanced Alzheimer's, you're like, hey, I have a way to cure your mom's Alzheimer's, but we have to stab her in the eye to do it. I would say 90% of people would say, great, go for it. But large pharmaceutical companies often have a hard time with that level of risk. They're averse to the commercial concept of, well, we're stabbing people in the eye. So the direct benefit on patients becomes a little bit diluted in the larger scheme of regulatory, FDA or whatever regulatory agencies you're dealing with in your individual country, insurance payers and things like that. So what we're able to do as a smaller group is the technology was invented by us, so we're very intimately familiar with it, and B, we're not bound by those same kind of pragmatic business considerations. We can actually focus on what makes the best possible singular product for patients. And the results of that in big pharma it has started to recognize that is we take on some of the risk up front and allow them to kind of follow. And in many cases nowadays, they support a lot of the companies like us as an intermediate in the technology development and be able to bridge that gap so that they can do what they do well and we can do what we do well. And that, in the end, I think makes the best possible picture for the patient.